Hi, I'm Karan Thapar. Over the last few years, I hope you've been watching my program, The Interview on the Wire. During that period, I've interviewed doctors, politicians, businessmen, scientists, authors, and even the occasional Nobel laureate. For me, it's been exciting. I hope it's been enjoyable for you. But these, as you know, are tough times, and if this program is going to remain bold, independent, and sometimes even defiant, then I think we need your support. At the end of the day, it's a truism, but editorial independence is best defended by the viewers. So if you would like this program to remain the way it is, forthright, outspoken, and interesting, then would you consider supporting us? All you have to do is to click on the description at the bottom. But more than anything else, I hope you will continue to watch the interview. Your viewership means an awful lot to me. Hello and welcome to a special interview for The Wire. Today I want to put three critical questions to Hamas. First, how does Hamas justify what it did on the 7th of October? Second, does Hamas believe an exchange of hostages for prisoners is possible in the foreseeable future? And third, how does Hamas see the long-term future? Joining me from Doha to answer these critical questions is one of the most senior leaders of Hamas, the former head of Hamas's political bureau and the present head of the International Relations Office, Dr. Musa Abu Marzouq. Dr. Marzouq, let's start with October 7th. I'll come to the other questions after that. How does Hamas justify killing 1,200 people, the vast majority of whom were innocent civilians and often young children and even babies, as well as elderly people in their 70s and 80s? You know that the world considers this utterly condemnable and completely unforgivable. How do you justify doing this?
كيف تبررون قتل 1400 إسرائيلي بشيء يعتبره العالم أمرا مثيرا للإدانة؟ أغلب ذلك الذين قتلوا هم من الأطفال، هم من الأبرياء، منهم أطفال أيضا، ومنهم رجال في كبار السن يبلغون الأعمار 70 أو 80 عاما.
هذه رواية إسرائيل قالت بها منذ اللحظات الأولى دون أن يسأل بقية العالم عن رواية حماس.
This is the Israeli narrative that have been marketed to the whole world without asking what was Hamas's narrative.
منذ بدء العملية كان هناك توجيه للرجال الذين قاموا بالعملية العسكرية في مواجهة الجيش الإسرائيلي وهو فرقة غزة في محيطها بأن لا يستهدفوا الرجال إلا المقاتلين ولا يستهدفوا النساء والرجال والأطفال والكبار السن.
Hamas's freedom fighters have been ordered and attention that they should not target any civilian but only the Gaza brigade within the IDF forces.
ولذلك هذا الأمر كان علنا ولم يكن فقط سري عند هؤلاء الرجال.
So this was also declared to those men. It was not a secret.
ولكن حينما هاجموا فرقة غزة وجدوها من الضعف بحيث لم تستغرق إلا أقل من ساعتين وانهار الجيش الإسرائيلي بكامله.
The freedom fighters were founded that the Gaza brigade within the IDF is so weak that it has been collapsed within 2 hours only.
Can I interrupt at that point and put this to you? You say that your freedom fighters were ordered not to target civilians. The truth, Dr. Marzouq, is at the Supernova Festival, almost 300 young Israelis, each and every one of them a civilian, was butchered. What did these innocent young people in their 1890s and early 20s do to deserve being killed? There's no way you could say they are not civilians.
ماذا بالنسبة عن مهرجان سوبر نوفا الموسيقي؟ هناك شباب في العشرينات وتحت 18 تم قتلهم وذبحهم. لا تستطيع القول بأن هؤلاء لم يكونوا مدنيين.
بالتأكيد هؤلاء تم قتلهم، لكن هل سأل العالم من قتل هؤلاء؟
Those should have been killed, but did the world ask who killed them?
هؤلاء تم السيطرة على عدة مستوطنات في غلاف غزة.
Those after have been controlled many settlements surrounding the Gaza envelope.
Are you suggesting, Dr. Marzouq, that these 300 people were killed by the Israelis themselves? Is that what you're suggesting?
Can you let me complete the answer, please?
Go ahead, sir.
ثم جاء الجيش الإسرائيلي بدباباته وطائراته وقصف المقاتلين الفلسطينيين مع المدنيين الذين كانوا في المستوطنات.
The IDF has came with its tanks, with its fighter jets, and shelled the freedom fighters along with those who have been in the festival.
هذه شهادات الناجين من هذه المستوطنات.
Those are testimonies, documented testimonies from the ones who have been survived from the settlements.
Can I ask you at this point, Dr. Marzouq, are you suggesting in that answer that these 300 young people at the Supernova Festival were killed by the Israelis themselves? That they were not killed by what you call Hamas freedom fighters, but that the Israelis did it themselves? Is that what you're saying?
هل تقول بأن الجيش الإسرائيلي هو الذي قتل 300 مدني في المهرجان الموسيقي وليس مقاتلي حماس كما تصفهم؟ هل تقصد أن الجيش الإسرائيلي هو الذي قتل مواطنيه؟
أنا لم أحقق في من قتل، ولكن أقول هذه شهادة الناجين على التلفزيون الإسرائيلي في القناة رقم 13.
I didn't investigate about what happened, but I'm telling you those are the testimonies which were aired on Israeli TV.
All right, let me ask you a second question. The worst part, Dr. Marzouq, is that the Hamas gunmen took pleasure in what they were doing. CBS television in America has seen a video where a gunman called Mahmoud rang up his father from inside one of the Israeli kibbutzes. And this is what he said. I'm quoting him. Dad, I killed 10 Jews with my bare hands. Please be proud of me. Many people would say this is close to barbaric, and I'm sure your fellow Palestinians would be embarrassed to hear this.
دكتور مرزوق، لكن مقاتلينكم الذين تصفونهم بمقاتلي الحرية كانوا يستمتعون فيما يفعلون. أنقل لك اتصالا هاتفيا تم إذاعته على CBS الأمريكية لرجل يدعى محمود يهاتف والده ويقول: أبي لقد قتلت 10 يهود بيدي العاريتين، يجب أن تكون فخورا بي. ألا يشكل هذا إحراجا لكم وإحراجا للفلسطينيين أيضا؟
والله إنه إحراج لجيش الدفاع الإسرائيلي الذي لم يستطع أن يصمد أمام هؤلاء الرجال، وثم بعد ذلك يزيف مكالمات من هذا النوع. لقد تم فريق في أكثر من وسيلة إعلامية دققوا في هذا ووجدوا أن هناك تزييفا في هذا الشريط ولم يكن حقيقة هناك مكالمة بين اثنين.
Actually, it's an embarrassment for the Israeli and the Israeli army, and because many media outlets have been investigating this video clips or this voice clips, and it was fabricated voice clip. This is actually embarrassment for the IDF also to have been collapsed, and instead of facing our freedom fighters, they are start to fabricate phone calls as such this phone call. My dear friend, let me tell you something.
كان هناك أوامر لهؤلاء الذين دخلوا في مواجهة جيش الدفاع الإسرائيلي بأن لا يحمل أي منهم تليفون سيلولار فون لأنه خطر على حياتهم.
Our freedom fighters have been ordered that no one of you should hold a cell phone or a mobile phone because it will consist a danger on your lives.
Dr.
ولذلك لم
Marzouq,
يكن
let
مع
me
مقاتلين
interrupt and point out
التليفونات.
that CBS said
دعني
this
أوضح لك.
video was taken from the body camera of your gunman. It was shown to
هذا
some
الفيديو
60
أخذ من
journalists by the Israelis. Several media outlets all over the world have reported this story. The BBC has, CBS has, ABC have. This has been widely accepted because it's taken from the body camera of your gunman.
هذه المكالمة أخذت من كاميرا رجالكم المسلحين وتم إذاعتها على عدة قنوات مثل CBS وCNN وقنوات غيرها.
ما هذا الذي أخذوه؟ الكاميرا تأخذ صور ولا تأخذ مكالمات تليفونية.
The camera actually captures images, not phone calls.
It would have captured people talking on the phone. The voice would have been captured by the camera.
لم يكن مع مقاتلين تليفونات.
Our freedom fighters have no phones.
All right. Let me put something else to you. Look at the sort of people you've taken hostage. 9-month-old babies, an 85-year-old woman. Several of your hostages are elderly people in their 70s and 80s. They need medicine. Without medicine, they could die. You've kept them in that condition for 6 weeks. A 9-month-old baby, an 85-year-old woman. How could you take this sort of person hostage?
انظر إلى الفئات التي أخذتموها كرهائن. طفل يبلغ من العمر 9 أشهر، رجال ونساء يبلغون العمر أكثر من 85 سنة، بعضهم مريض ويحتاج إلى علاج. كيف أخذتم على محمل شخصي بأن تأسروا فئات مثل هذه؟ نتحدث عن طفل يبلغ من العمر 9 شهور.
هؤلاء لم يأخذهم المقاتلين الذين دخلوا. صحيح بأن هناك فوضى وفي كل الحروب تحصل هذه الفوضى، ولكن انظر إلى حجم الأطفال الذين يقتلون في الوقت الحاضر على مرأى ومسمع من العالم، ولم تسألني عن قصة أي من هؤلاء.
Actually, a chaos have been happened, and as every war there is a chaos had happened. Indeed, there is prisoners in the custody of Gaza, but they were not taken by our freedom fighters. There have been chaos that happened in the war. And why you didn't ask me? If you ask about children, why didn't ask me about the children of Gaza who have been butchered and massacred on daily basis?
Let me tell you why I haven't asked you about that. Let me tell you why I haven't asked you about that. Because those are questions I will put to Israelis. Those are alleged wrongs done by Israel. They should be questioned. I'm questioning you about alleged wrongs done by Hamas, which is why I'm not bringing that up.
هذا جيد. وإنني منذ اليوم الأول أعلنت للعالم كله في نيويوركرز تايم في مجلة نيويوركر بأنه هؤلاء ضيوف عندنا ونعاملهم معاملة حسنة وسنطلق سراحهم جميعا.
This is a good thing to say, and from the day one, I said that those are guests, and we will deal them accordingly in a goodwill. And I told that to the New Yorker magazine. Those are guests to us.
Let me ask you this. Dr. Marzouq. Let me ask you this, because the audience will want clarity. You said that chaos happened. Are you therefore suggesting that you did not mean to take a 9-month-old baby hostage? You did not mean to take an 85-year-old woman hostage? Were those accidents and mistakes?
بالتأكيد لم يكن هناك أوامر ولا مقصد عند المقاتلين بأن يحملوا هؤلاء إلى غزة.
Our freedom fighters have been no orders given to them to hold such categories to Gaza.
So was it a mistake?
هل كانت غلطة؟
هذه بالتأكيد من الأخطاء التي تقع في الحروب.
This is mistakes which happen in wars.
Okay, that's very important. Taking a 9-year-old baby and an 85-year-old woman hostage was a mistake. As you said, this is the sort of mistake that happens in wars. I'm noting that because I think it's the first time anyone as senior as you in Hamas has admitted a mistake was made. Now, let me put to you what President Mahmoud Abbas has said. He's the president of the Palestine Authority. Even he has not defended what Hamas did. This was his initial comment before he amended it for political reasons. I'm quoting President Abbas. The policies and actions of Hamas do not represent the Palestinian people. And then he added, the Palestine Liberation Organization represents the Palestinian people as their sole legitimate representative, not any other organization. Even someone who is a fellow Palestinian, President Abbas, is turning his back on Hamas because of what you did on the 7th of October.
حتى شخص فلسطيني زميل لكم مثل الرئيس محمود عباس لم يدافع عن أعمال حماس. لقد قال في إحدى تصريحاته، وأنا أقتبس هنا، بأن ما تفعله حماس لا يمثل الشعب الفلسطيني، ومنظمة التحرير هي الممثل الوحيد والشرعي للشعب الفلسطيني. حتى شخص مثل محمود عباس أدار ظهره لكم.
محمود عباس هو خارج التاريخ الآن، لا يسأله أحد عن المستقبل، ولكن يسألون أيضا عن مستقبل محمود عباس، لأنه لم يعد معنيا بالشأن الفلسطيني. ما فعلته حماس فعلته من أجل مستقبل الشعب الفلسطيني ومستقبل أبناء الشعب الفلسطيني.
Actually, what Mahmoud Abbas is out of the context of history. No one is asking him about the future of Palestine. On the contrary, they are asking him about his self-future, because he has no long in the Palestinian, among the Palestinians. What Hamas did on the 7th of October, it representing a defending for the Palestinian rights and freedom.
نحن في حماس تحت الحصار وتحت الاحتلال منذ 50 عاما، وتحت وفي مخيمات اللجوء منذ أكثر من 70 عاما، وليس هناك تغيير على حالنا إلا بالمقاومة.
Actually, we are in Hamas as Palestinians also under occupation, under siege for more than 70 years, and no solution will break this occupation and this siege. Only the resistance will solve this issue.
Dr. Marzouq,
we did that for our prisoners and for Jerusalem.
Dr. Marzouq, you're dismissing out of hand President Abbas, but you must be aware that the only Palestine Authority recognized internationally is in fact Mr. Abbas. Even your Arab neighbors do not recognize Hamas. It's no secret that Egypt and Jordan don't like you. It's no secret that Saudi Arabia doesn't like you. They all recognize Abbas.
الرئيس محمود عباس يمثل الجهة الوحيدة المعترف بها دوليا وفي المجتمع الدولي. حتى جيرانكم العرب لا يعترفون بكم. مصر والأردن لا تحبكم، السعودية لا تحبكم. فقط محمود عباس هو الذي ينال الاعتراف والشرعية.
نحن في منطقة يتحكم بها الأمريكان بصورة كلية.
We are in a region under the full control of the US administration.
ويحرم الناس فيها من حرية التعبير.
And people are deprived from the freedom of expression.
وحينما يتاح الفرصة للناس يبرزون من هو الذي يمثل الفلسطينيين ومن يحبون.
And actually, when the people have the freedom to express themselves, they actually will choose who will represent Palestinians and who Palestinians like.
ألا ترى بأنه كل العالم الآن يقف إلى جوار حماس؟
Aren't you see that the whole world is standing with Hamas?
بصورة أو بأخرى.
In an image or another.
When you say
you didn't see
كل الشعب الفلسطيني
all the Palestinian people in Gaza Strip.
لم
Dr. Marzouq,
didn't
Dr. Marzouq, when you say the whole world is standing with Hamas, name the country standing with Hamas other than Iran and Hezbollah, who, and perhaps the Houthi. Which are the countries from the Arab world standing with Hamas?
من هي الدول العربية ناهيك بعيدا عن إيران وعن حزب الله والحوثيين؟ هات سمي لي دولة عربية واحدة تقف بجانب حماس.
أنا أتكلم عن الجماهير وأتكلم عن الشعوب وأتكلم عن هؤلاء الناس الذين يعبرون في الشارع عن تأييدنا.
I'm talking about the masses, the peoples, the protests who are expressing Hamas.
أما بالنسبة للدول
Can I
أنا هنا أستقبل معظم الدول، أستقبل روسيا والصين وجنوب أفريقيا وقطر وكل الدول العربية، وأستقبل الجميع هنا وأتحدث معهم.
Regarding the states, actually, I'm receiving in my own office many countries and many diplomats representing those countries, such as Russia, China, Qatar, etc.
Are you saying that diplomats from Russia, China, and Qatar,
also the European countries,
are you saying that,
and Arab countries?
Are you saying that diplomats from Russia, China, Qatar, and you also said European countries, but you didn't say which European countries? You're saying diplomats from these countries are quietly, perhaps surreptitiously coming to your office to meet you? Are you saying this is being done behind closed doors, so to speak?
هل تقول بأن العديد من الدول الأوروبية التي لم تسمها دبلوماسيوها يزورونكم في مكتبكم بشكل سري بعيدا عن الأضواء؟ هل هذا ما تقوله؟
صحيح.
Yes, it's true.
Okay, one more question on this issue before I come to the question of hostages. A poll done by Arab Barometer, research for which only concluded on the 6th of October, which is literally one day before your strike of the 7th, and this poll was published recently by Foreign Affairs, shows that distrust of Hamas in Gaza is very high. 44% said they had no trust at all in Hamas. 23% said they had not a lot of trust. Together, that is 67%. Now, my question is very simple, Dr. Marzouq. After the devastation, destruction, and deaths that your October 7th strike has brought upon Gaza, if the people of Gaza blame you for what's happened, your support, in other words, Hamas support, will literally collapse.
هناك استطلاع للرأي تم نشره في السادس من أكتوبر في إحدى المجلات، أظهرت بأن 44% لا يثقون بحماس، و23% لا يثقون بتاتا بحماس. هذا مجموع أكثر من 76% ترفض حركة حماس. هل تتوقع بأن يلوم الناس في غزة الدمار والتشريد الذي جلبه عليكم أو جلبته إلى غزة يوم 7 من أكتوبر؟
أين كان هذا الاستطلاع؟
Where this poll have been published?
The poll was published by Foreign Affairs magazine at the end of October. The research for the poll concluded on the 6th of October, one day before 7th October and the strike.
Where?
In مجلة Foreign Affairs.
Where? In Palestine?
The poll was conducted in Gaza.
جرت انتخابات عملية بمراقبة دولية، وحماس حصلت 76% تمثيلا للشعب الفلسطيني. فهل يعقل مثل هذا الاستطلاع وأن لا يطلع عليه أحد من الشعب الفلسطيني؟
Actually, Hamas has won 67 majority in the Palestinian elections. Is it logical that no one from the Palestinians have shown?
That was 16 years ago. You're talking of
هذا كان قبل 16 سنة.
2006.
ولكن أتحدث عن استطلاع قبل بيوم.
لم أكمل الجواب.
I didn't finish the answer.
ونحن تحدثنا عدة مرات مع المجتمع الدولي، مع الأمريكان ومع الأوروبيين ومع كل الأطراف، نتحداهم بأن يجروا انتخابات في فلسطين، وهم لا يريدون انتخابات في فلسطين لأنهم يعرفون أن نتيجة لصالح حماس.
We spoke with the Americans, with the Europeans, with many international parties that we dare them to make elections in Palestine, and they always refuse because they know very well that Hamas will win those elections.
وأنت تعلم بأن
Just to be clear, are you saying, Dr. Marzouq, are you saying if elections are held today, after your October 7th strike has led to death, devastation, and destruction in Gaza, if elections are held today, are you saying Hamas will win outright?
بالتأكيد.
For sure.
حماس ستفوز في الانتخابات وبنسبة غير مسبوقة إذا جرت الانتخابات اليوم في فلسطين بين الفلسطينيين في الداخل والخارج حتى.
Hamas will win with unprecedented percentage actually if there's and elections will be held inside Palestine and also outside Palestine.
أما بخصوص ما يحصل في قطاع غزة اليوم من تدمير للبنية التحتية وللمباني، فهذا إسرائيل من فعل ذلك.
Regarding what is happening, devastation from the buildings in Gaza and the infrastructure, what did that is Israel.
ولم تكن المرة الأولى.
And it wasn't the first time.
نحن منذ 1948 والمذابح في الشعب الفلسطيني مستمرة.
Palestinians have been subjugated to massacres since 1948.
أنا شخصياً
I am personally.
Let's then come, Dr. Marzouq, to a second issue. The second issue I mentioned in my introduction. This is the question of hostages. There are a spate of reports that Qatar, the country from where you're speaking to me, is arranging an exchange of hostages for Palestinian prisoners in Israeli jails. And Reuters has said that Hamas has agreed to the broad outline of this deal, and now Qatar is waiting for Israel's broad agreement. Can you first of all confirm this Reuters report that there is an exchange being planned, that something as many as 50 Israeli hostages could be released for perhaps 70 or 80 Palestinian prisoners in Israeli jails, that you, Hamas, have agreed to the broad outline, and now Qatar is waiting for Israel's agreement to the broad outline? Can you confirm that?
هل يمكنكم أن تؤكد تقارير رويترز التي تتحدث عن وجود صفقة بين إسرائيل وحماس بأن تفرج حماس عن 50 مقابل 70 أسيرا فلسطينيا وقطر تتولى الوساطة؟ هل يمكنك تأكيد تلك التقارير؟
هناك وساطة قطرية صحيح، وهناك وصلنا إلى اتفاق مساعدة أمريكية أيضا لقطر، وكانت إطلاق سراح 50 من النساء والأطفال من قطاع غزة، وإسرائيل تطلق 100 من الأطفال والنساء من سجونها، ولكن مع دخول مساعدات إنسانية إلى قطاع غزة بما فيها 4 شاحنات بترول، وإسرائيل مع وقف إطلاق النار، لأنه لا يمكن إطلاق سراح الأسرى إلا إذا كان هناك وقفا لإطلاق النار. لكن إسرائيل في النهاية رفضت وقف إطلاق النار في الشمال، ثم رفضت أيضا أي تحرك للمواطنين من الجنوب إلى الشمال، وسمحت لتحرك المواطنين من الشمال إلى الجنوب، وبالتالي أفشلت الاتفاق إسرائيل.
Actually, there is a Qatari mediation between us and Israel, and also with the help of the Americans. The Americans have been working with the Qataris in the mediation of negotiations. The details are as follows. We will release 50 from the Israeli citizens in exchange for the Israelis to set free 100 from women and children. And also we were conditioning that there should be a freedom of movement for the citizens of the Gaza Strip from south to north and vice versa. But the Israelis has refused the movement from and they make it as exclusion from north to south only, and that's why the negotiations have been collapsed eventually by the Israelis. And also, I forget to mention that in conditions of the agreement, that the Israelis should stop their air flights and their fighter jets from hovering in the Gaza skies, but they refuse, and that's why the negotiations have been collapsed.
But you said something very important, and I'm repeating it so the audience are clear and there's no mistake or misunderstanding. You said Hamas is prepared to release 50 Israeli hostages. In return, Israel will release 100 Palestinian prisoners in Israeli jails. The condition is that you want the people of Gaza to be free to move both north to south and south to north. Israel, you're saying, is only agreeing to moving from north to south, not in reverse from south to north. Secondly, the other condition is you want a complete stop of airstrikes. Now, on that second condition, are you talking of a permanent stop of airstrikes? In other words, are you talking of a ceasefire or just a stop of airstrikes for a limited number of days? Which of the two?
هل تتحدى أنت قلت بأنه الشرط الثاني هو توقف حركة الطيران، هل تعني توقف القصف أيضا؟ هل تعني بعبارة أخرى وقفا لإطلاق النار؟
كان هناك في هذا الاتفاق وقف لإطلاق النار لمدة 5 أيام، ولكن لا بد أن تكون السماء خالية من الطيران المراقبة وطيران بدون طيران حتى نتمكن من إطلاق سراح من الأسرى من الأطفال والنساء.
There is a ceasefire already in the agreement for 5 days. I am talking about to stop flighting and hovering for the reconnaissance planes and the drones planes and the intelligence planes to make our people collect those citizens or those captured safely without endangering them.
So if I understand correctly, part of the agreement is a 5-day ceasefire, during which period the exchange of 50 Israeli hostages in return for 100 Palestinian prisoners will happen. But what you want also agreed to during that 5-day ceasefire is the stopping of reconnaissance flights. Is that right? It's reconnaissance flights that you want stopped during the ceasefire.
طائرات الاستطلاع الذين تريدون وقفها خلال ال5 أيام، أليس كذلك؟
كل الطائرات في سماء غزة.
Everything hovering in the skies of Gaza.
Tell me, Dr. Marzouq, how serious is the fact that Israel is not agreeing to north-south as well as south-north movement for the Gaza people? As you said, they've agreed to people from the north coming south, but they're not willing to allow people from the south to go north. How serious an obstacle is that?
إلى أي مدى يشكل هذا عقبة موضوع تحرك الناس من الجنوب إلى الشمال؟ إلى أي مدى جدية إسرائيل في منع ذلك؟
إسرائيل تحاول تهجير الناس من الشمال إلى الجنوب، وهي تضرب كل البنى التحتية وتضرب المستشفيات والمساجد والكنائس والبيوت والمدارس حتى يهجر الناس من الشمال إلى الجنوب، فلا تريد لأحد أن يعود من الجنوب إلى الشمال في فترة التهدئة.
Actually, Israel is committing is displacing people from north to south, hitting in the north hospitals, mosques, schools, churches. That's why they don't want anyone to go back from south to north.
But I thought you said one of the conditions of the ceasefire was permission for people to go both from the north to the south and also in reverse from the south to the north. Did I misunderstand that?
أنت قلت بأن هناك شرطا منكم بحرية الحركة من الشمال إلى الجنوب والعكس. هل أنا أسأت الفهم في هذا؟
نعم، شرط من عندنا، ولكن إسرائيل رفضت هذا الشرط.
Yeah, it's a condition from our side, but Israel has refused that condition.
And is this condition from your side a breaking point?
هل هذا يشكل نقطة مهمة في مفاوضاتكم لكم؟
هذه نقطة من النقاط.
This is one breaking point.
ولكن الأكثر خطورة وهو أن يتوقف إطلاق النار والطيران من سماء غزة بشكل أساسي.
But the most important are the stop hovering of the planes from the skies of Gaza and the ceasefire also. Those are fundamentals.
So there are two breaking points. One is
not all conditions have the same weight.
Which is more important, the movement in the skies or permission to travel both ways?
ما أيهما أهم، منع الطيران من السماء أم التحرك بالاتجاهين؟
سلامة النساء والأطفال ووصولهم بالسلامة إلى الصليب الأحمر.
The safety of women and children and their safety to reach the ICRC.
Therefore, you're saying that movement in the skies is the more important condition.
تقول بأنه توقف الحركة في السماء هو الأهم، أليس كذلك؟
كلها شروط مهمة لكن هذا الأهم.
All of them are important conditions, but this is the most important.
Tell me something, Dr. Marzouq. Do you expect an exchange of hostages and prisoners to happen in the next few days or week, or do you think it's unlikely?
هل تتوقع الدكتور مرزوق بأن يحدث هناك صفقة تبادل في الأيام القليلة القادمة أو الأسابيع أم أن هذا لن يحدث؟
شدة الاختلافات عند السياسيين الإسرائيليين تمنع الوصول إلى اتفاق.
The intensity of differences within the Israeli leaders actually obstacling the reach of agreement.
تستطيع أن تستطلع الآن الآراء الإسرائيليين السياسيين الموجودين والقادة العسكريين لترى الكثير من الاختلافات بينهم حول عدد لترات البنزين التي تدخل إلى الشمال.
You can now explore the opinions and suggestions by the Israeli leaders, and you will see the big differences and how even they are differentiate between the amount of fuel to let it enter to the south.
So what you're saying, Dr. Marzouq, is that the right wing, the extreme right wing in Netanyahu's cabinet is creating obstacles. You're, I assume, pointing towards people like Stomrich, the finance minister, and Ben Gvir, the national security minister. You're saying these sort of people, these people with extreme right-wing views in Netanyahu's cabinet are the obstacle that are holding up a deal exchanging hostages for prisoners.
هل تقول دكتور مرزوق بأن اليمنيين المتطرفين في حكومة نتنياهو ومجلسه المصغر مثل سموتريتش وزير المالية وبن غفير وزير الأمن هم الذين يشكلون عقبة أساسية في التوصل للاتفاق؟
أنا لست جالسا بينهم في مجلس الحرب.
I'm not sitting with them in the war cabinet.
ولكن الآن أمريكا ضغطت لإدخال بعض البترول إلى الجنوب وهو كميات قليلة جدا وثارت ثائرتهم ليمنعوا نتنياهو من الاستجابة للأمريكان.
Even America has asked Netanyahu to let some liters of fuel to enter from the south, but they have been angered and pressuring Netanyahu to prevent him from allowing the fuel to enter to the Gaza Strip.
On the fuel, I will simply tell the audience that the Americans have announced that 140,000 liters of fuel will be permitted to enter Gaza every second day. It's a lot less than what Gaza needs, but America has announced that Israel has agreed to 140,000 liters of fuel every second day, which I believe amounts to 2 tankers coming in each day. 2 more quick questions on hostages before I come to my third subject. Your colleague, Osama Hamdan, who described himself as a Hamas spokesperson, said on the BBC on the 16th, that is 2 days ago, that the Israeli hostages are not in the hands of Hamas. Does this mean that they are in the hands of other groups like Islamic Jihad? Can you confirm that they are not? None of the 240 are in the custody of Hamas. They are in the custody of Islamic Jihad or other groups like that.
زميلك أسامة حمدان الذي يصف نفسه بأنه متحدث باسم حركة حماس قال بأن هناك فصائل بأن ليس كل الأسرى بيد حماس. هل تؤكد ذلك بأن ليس 240 شخص هم في حوزة حماس فقط بل في حوزة مجموعات وفصائل أخرى مثل الجهاد الإسلامي؟
هذا بالتأكيد ما قاله صحيح. والجهاد الإسلامي أعلن ذلك وقال إن لديه 31 أسير الآن.
And the Islamic Jihad has declared that he had 31 prisoners till this moment.
وهناك أسر دخلت وأيضا أخذت أسرى حتى يتم التبادل مع أبنائهم.
And there are families have been taken Israeli hostages because their sons are prisoners in the Israeli jails.
ولقد سمعت إنه إسرائيل حررت إحدى السيدات.
And I hear that Israel has freed some of the ladies.
هذه كانت في أسرة من أسر أهل غزة.
Actually, this lady was in the custody of some of Gaza family.
But how many hostages are in your custody? How many hostages are in Hamas custody? Or is Osama Hamdan right when he says you have no hostages in Hamas custody?
كم عدد الأسرى الذين بحوزتكم الآن؟ أم أسامة حمدان محق عندما قال ليس لديكم أي أسرى في حوزتكم؟
لا، أنا أسامة لم نقل أرقاما.
We didn't say numbers.
ولا أعلم أرقاما في حوزتنا.
And I have no idea about numbers in our custody.
So in other words, it's quite possible Hamas does have hostages in its custody, and that Osama Hamdan is wrong when he says there are no hostages in Hamas custody. That is also quite possibly the situation.
هل هذا هو الاحتمال بأن أسامة حمدان بيكون ربما أخطأ عندما قال بأنه ليس لدى حماس أي من الرهائن؟
هناك كان محاولات لتقديم قوائم بالأسرى الذين يتم إطلاق سراحهم، وكان هناك اعتذار من الحركة بدون وقف إطلاق النار تقديم أي من هذه القوائم.
Actually, there were attempts to create a list of the people who are in Hamas's custody, but Hamas has conditioned there should be a ceasefire to create such lists.
ولذلك في الفترة الأخيرة تخلوا عن وجود أسماء بقوائم وقالوا فقط أرقام.
That's why in the recent days have been abandoned the idea of lists and they talk about only numbers.
I understand what you're saying, but I'll point out to the audience that you're not confirming what Osama Hamdan said. You're not confirming that there are no hostages in Hamas custody. You're clearly suggesting you have some hostages, but you can't compile a list of those in your custody until there's a ceasefire. That is very different to what Osama Hamdan told the BBC just 2 days ago.
أنا أجيب على أسئلتك ولا أقارن بين لأني لم أسمع أسامة حمدان. أنا فقط أجيب على أسئلتك.
I'm actually answering your questions. I didn't hear about Osama Hamdan's interview. I'm only answering your questions.
Okay, so the answer, and I'll just underline this for the audience, is that you cannot compile a list of people in your custody until there's a ceasefire, and that suggests by implication
ليس هذا
there are
جوابي.
people.
This is not my answer. This is not my answer.
Please tell exactly what I said.
Please repeat it for me in English, sir.
كرر ما قلته بالإنجليزية سيدي.
Please tell them about exactly what I said, not what you translate or understand.
Well, what I understood is what the translator has repeated, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you have said that you cannot compile a list of people in your custody until there is a ceasefire. And
أنت قلت بأنه لا تستطيع تكوين أي قوائم ما لم يكن هناك وقف لإطلاق النار.
صحيح.
Yes, it's true.
And that clearly suggests there are people in your custody. Otherwise, there's no need to compile a list.
وهذا يعني أن هناك أناس بحوزتكم.
هذا استنتاج.
This is a conclusion.
Thank you. So then there are people in Hamas custody. That has been established. We just don't know how many. One last question about hostages. Al Jazeera is reporting that 60 hostages have been killed by Israeli airstrikes. Can you confirm that?
الجزيرة قال بأن هناك 60 أسيرا تم قتلهم بواسطة الغارات الإسرائيلية. هل يمكنك تأكيد ذلك؟
لا أستطيع التأكيد، ولكن أقول هذا خبر قالته الجزيرة وتحدث عنه المتحدث باسم القسام، ولكن ليس عندي لا أسماء ولا أستطيع أن أقدم أدلة على ذلك عملية، لأنهم تحت الردم في معظمهم.
This news have been circulated by Al Jazeera and they have been quoting that from Al Qassam spokesperson, and I have no idea or confirmation about the names or the number because they are under the rubble.
That means that several possibly hostages have died by Israeli airstrikes. You don't know their names, you don't know their number because they're under rubble. But it does suggest quite clearly that several hostages have died as a result of Israeli airstrikes.
ولكن هذا يقترح فعلا بأن هناك أسرى إسرائيليين تم قتلهم بواسطة الغارات الإسرائيلية حتى وإن لم تكن تملك قوائم أو أسماء، ولكن هذا يؤكد ذلك، أليس كذلك؟
بالتأكيد مع 12,000 فلسطيني تم قتلهم ومنهم 5,000 من الأطفال.
Of course, indeed, within the 12,000 Palestinians, among them 5,000 have been killed. Indeed, there are.
My last issue before we end this interview, Dr. Marzouq, I want to look briefly to the future to the extent we can. If I'm correct, in 2017, Hamas changed its charter and was willing to accept an Israeli state alongside a Palestinian state without officially recognizing that Israeli state. After what's happened in the last 6 weeks, when over 12,000 Palestinians have been killed and perhaps 29,000 injured, can you go back to this position, or is that door closed forever?
في 2017 دكتور مرزوق حماس عدلت من وثيقتها السياسية وقبلت بحل الدولتين. هل بعد هذا القتل وبعد هذا التدمير ما زال هذا الباب مفتوحا، أم أنه بعد هذه الذي حدث الباب أصبح مغلقا للأبد؟
في اعتقادي أنه حل الدولة الواحدة وهي حل أن تكون هناك فلسطين التاريخية هو الحل الصحيح، ولن يكون حل إلا بأن تكون فلسطين دولة مستقلة ذات سيادة يجتمع فيها كل مواطنيها عرب وعجم، مسلمين ومسيحيين ويهود بلا تفرقة، وأن لا يكون هنا المواطنة على أساس الدين ولكن المواطنة على أساس المساكنة والعيش على أرض واحدة. هذا هو الحل الصحيح وليس حل الدولتين، فلا يمكن أن نقبل بإسرائيل بعد اليوم.
Actually, the main solution would be the one-state solution, as historical Palestine will be liberated only for Palestinians, Arabs from all religions, Muslims, Christians, Jews, a country which will contain all of those categories without discrimination upon religion or upon anything else. This historical Palestine will give citizenship only in the criteria of residence, not discrimination or apartheid. This is the only solution I am seeing right now.
So just to be clear, you're saying something very significant. You're saying the ideal solution, and then you said the only solution is a one-state solution where Jews and Arabs, where Israelis and Palestinians live side by side as equal citizens with equal rights in the same country. That is, in your mind, both the ideal and the only solution.
هل الحل المثالي والحل الحل المثالي هو تقول بأنه دولة واحدة، حل الدولة الواحدة يضمن العيش بالإسرائيليين والفلسطينيين جنبا إلى جنب في دولة واحدة؟ هل هذا ما تقترحونه؟
هذا ما أجبت فيه على سؤالك حول الوثيقة وما أعتقد في المستقبل.
This is what I answered you regarding the Hamas document.
Not Hamas. This is my answer.
This is my answer.
He asking me about the documents 2017, and I answer about that question that I believe that one-state solution as Palestine or liberate all of the Palestine for all of their citizenship, Muslim, Jewish, Christian, at the same right and same duty.
I think you're giving me your personal opinion is very important because Dr. Marzouq, you are an extremely senior leader of Hamas. I'll just remind the audience, you are the former head of the Hamas political bureau. You were succeeded by Ismail Haniyeh, who is said to be the present head of Hamas. You are also at the moment the head of the International Relations Office of Hamas in Doha. Therefore, your personal opinion that the only solution and the ideal solution is a one-state solution where Christians, Jews, and Muslims have equal rights is a very important answer, because your personal opinion will definitely affect what Hamas decides to do. Let me add, before you answer, another thought. I believe Ismail Haniyeh made a speech on the 2nd of November, which was circulated online. In that speech, he suggested 4 stages for a solution to the present crisis. Stage 1 was a ceasefire. Stage 2 was open the crossings. Stage 3 was a prisoner hostage exchange. And stage 4 is the most important, a political path to an independent Palestinian state. Now, when he talks about an independent Palestinian state, does he share your personal view? That is my question. Does he share your personal thinking that the ideal and only solution is a one-state solution?
سيد إسماعيل هنية قبل في 2 أكتوبر نفذ خطابا وقال فيه بأن الحل السياسي يتكون من 4 نقاط. النقطة الأولى هي وقف إطلاق النار، والثانية هي فتح المعابر، والثالثة أيضا هي اتفاقية تبادل الأسرى. النقطة الرابعة هي المهمة التي قال بأن الحل السياسي يكمن في الذهاب إلى حل سياسي يضمن إقامة دولة فلسطينية مستقلة. هل تشاركه هذه الآراء؟ وأنت كما أكرر للجمهور أنت كنت رئيس حركة حماس مكتبها السياسي، وأنت الآن تشغل منصب رئيس مكتب العلاقات الدولية في الحركة، فهل تشارك السيد هنية نفس هذه الأفكار؟
هذا هو ما ذكره الأستاذ إسماعيل هنية، هو سياسة الحركة اتجاه الأحداث في الوقت الحاضر والأهداف التي وضعها سياسيا على الطاولة، وهذا هو موقف الحركة في الوقت الحاضر.
This actually, what Mr. Ismail Haniyeh said actually are the stances and the goals of the Hamas movement regarding the current situation.
So does that mean that Mr. Haniyeh and Dr. Marzouq are similar and alike, and they both believe that a one-state solution is the ideal and only solution?
هل يعني هذا بأن السيد إسماعيل هنية والسيد الدكتور موسى أبو مرزوق يتشاركان نفس الآراء ويقولون بأن الحل الوحيد والمثالي هو حل الدولة الواحدة؟
أنت سألتني بشكل شخصي عن المستقبل فيما يتعلق بالوثيقة السياسية والمستقبل فيما يتعلق بوجهة نظري، فأنا قلت لك وجهة نظري أن المستقبل سيكون هكذا. أما سياستنا في الوقت الحاضر الذي ذكرها الأستاذ إسماعيل هنية.
You are asking me personally about my view about the future and about the solution in the current situation. But what Mr. Haniyeh said is representing the whole stance of the Hamas movement.
Just to be clear, will you share with me what you believe to be Ismail Haniyeh's personal view? You were very kind and generous to give me your personal view. Will you now tell me what is Ismail Haniyeh's personal view?
أنت كنت كريما وقلت لي رأيك الشخصي، هل لك أن تتفضل علي بمزيد من الكرم وتقول لي ما رأي السيد إسماعيل هنية؟
فيما قاله.
What he said actually.
He said 4 things. He said there were 4 steps necessary.
Yes, those 4 things.
ولكن الهدف الرابع المتعلق بالدولة الفلسطينية في الضفة الغربية وقطاع غزة والقدس عاصمة.
But regarding also the 4th point of the Palestinian state in Gaza, the West Bank with Jerusalem its capital.
وهو نفس الموقف الذي تتبناه منظمة التحرير الفلسطيني.
And also it's the same PLO's stance.
In other words, you're saying to me, and I'm interpreting what you're saying, that there is no difference between Dr. Marzouq and Ismail Haniyeh. They both believe the ideal and only solution is a one-state solution.
يعني أنت تقول بأن الحل هو نفس المشابه الذي تقوله هو نفس آراء السيد إسماعيل هنية، بأن الحل المثالي والحل الوحيد هو حل الدولة الواحدة.
أنا ذكرت هذا وجهة نظري في المستقبل.
This is my personal view in the future.
All right, I leave it there. There's a certain element of doubt whether Dr. Haniyeh agrees with you and shares your personal view, but I don't think I will get you to reveal what is Mr. Haniyeh's personal view. My last two questions, and then I will end this interview. Do the Arab countries believe and agree with you that a one-state solution is the only and ideal solution?
هل توافقكم الدول العربية بأن حل الدولة الواحدة هو الحل المثالي والوحيد؟
لا، ولا إسرائيل توافق.
No, even Israel does not agree.
There are voices in Israel like Gideon Levy that do agree. He's gone on record with me many times in interviews to say he believes a two-state solution is now impossible. It's been overtaken by time. There are too many Israeli settlers in the West Bank for a viable Palestinian state to exist side by side with an Israeli state. The only solution, and this is his personal view, identical to your personal view, Dr. Marzouq, that a one-state solution where Muslims and Jews, Arabs and Palestinians live side by side as equal citizens with equal rights is the only solution. So there are a few voices in Israel that agree with you.
هناك بعض الأصوات في إسرائيل مثل جدعون ليفي الذي استضفته وقال بأن حل الدولتين حل مستحيل. هناك العديد من المستوطنات في الضفة الغربية التي تمنع إقامة حل الدولتين. إذا هناك أصوات من إسرائيل تشاركك الرأي وتقول بأنه الحل هو حل دولة واحدة يعيش فيها العرب والإسرائيليون من كافة الديانات جنبا إلى جنب.
سمعت بكثير من هؤلاء، وأعتقد هناك أيضا بين الفلسطينيين من يقول بهذا، ولكن ليس هناك ما يكفي من الرأي للخروج بهذا الحل، وعدم الثقة التي تبنى وتزيد بين الطرفين قد تكون حائلا دون ذلك.
I heard a lot of voices who are sharing the same view, but there are also gaps of not building a trust between the parties actually will prevent that.
I understand. My last question before I end the interview. Your real challenge, insofar as your personal view that a one-state solution is the ideal and only solution, your real challenge is convincing America. Secretary of State Blinken just a few days ago in Tokyo went public to say that a two-state solution, joining Gaza to the West Bank, under the Palestine Authority, and presumably he means the PLO, is the best solution. How will you convince the Biden administration that a one-state solution is a better one?
كيف يمكنكم أن تقنعوا إدارة الرئيس بايدن بأن حل الدولة الواحدة هو الحل الأنسب؟ خاصة بلينكن وزير الخارجية في اليابان قال بأن حل الدولتين تضم في غزة والضفة تحت سيطرة السلطة وما يعني سيطرة منظمة التحرير هو الحل المثالي. كيف يمكنكم أن تقنعوا الإدارة الأمريكية بأن حل الدولة الواحدة هو الحل الأفضل؟
لا أحد يحاول أن يطرح حل الدولة الواحدة، لأنه معنى ذلك أن الدولة الواحدة هي الدولة اليهودية في نظر الصهيونية الدينية التي الموجودة الحاكمة في إسرائيل أولا، والأمر الثاني بأنه الحل الدولتين هذا معتمد ليس فقط بين الفلسطينيين والإسرائيليين بل في الأمم المتحدة ومعظم دول العالم تقول به.
Actually, no one in Israel is supporting the one-state solution. If they want to talk about the one-state solution, they will talk about a full Jewish Zionist state supported by the right fanatic groups inside Israel. And also worth to mention that the two-state solution is a solution which is supported by the international community.
Absolutely. Dr. Marzouq, thank you very much for the time you've given me. I've taken up a whole hour of your time. Thank you very much for answering all my questions, whether you like them or not, fully and comprehensively. And in particular, Dr. Marzouq, we are losing you. We've got you back. And in particular, Dr. Marzouq, thank you very much for two very important things you did. You gave me details of the hostage exchange for prisoners in return that is happening. I think that's very important. You've given us details about what the conditions are and what the obstacles are. And you also have made a very important admission that taking a 9-month-old baby and an 85-year-old woman hostage was a mistake. But as you said, this is the sort of mistake that happens in war. I'm grateful to you for speaking to me. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Karan Thapar. Over the last few years, I hope you've been watching my program, The Interview on the Wire. During that period, I've interviewed doctors, politicians, businessmen, scientists, authors, and even the occasional Nobel laureate. For me, it's been exciting. I hope it's been enjoyable for you. But these, as you know, are tough times, and if this program is going to remain bold, independent, and sometimes even defiant, then I think we need your support. At the end of the day, it's a truism, but editorial independence is best defended by the viewers. So if you would like this program to remain the way it is, forthright, outspoken, and interesting, then would you consider supporting us? All you have to do is to click on the description at the bottom. But more than anything else, I hope you will continue to watch The Interview. Your viewership means an awful lot to me.